History shows how the search for more expedite travel paths have pushed great voyagers to challenge the unknown. They all wanted to combine various destinations of the world in order to make trade more efficient in their times. Marco Polo traveled from Europe to the Far East in order to establish the Silk Route in the 12th century. Christopher Columbus also searched for a new route to reach the East Indies, but accidentally landed in America in the 15th century, nearly at the same time when Vasco da Gama was crossing the Atlantic to find out how to settle the civilization of the times and make trade more efficient. Those were times in which the history of human development was being written by traveling the Atlantic Ocean, interlinking producers with traders, the same way it is done nowadays. Navigation charts changed in 1869 when the Suez Canal was opened, following the visionary initiative of Ferdinand de Lesseps to bring Europe closer to the East. Less than half a century later, in 1914, maritime traffic reduced the size of maritime charts even more when the Panama Canal was opened. It was no longer necessary to sail along America in order for Asia to trade with the East Coast, the United States, or Europe. Throughout the years, the impact of this new thinking translated into a whole new window of opportunities. New suppliers settled in the Far East, flooded all markets with low-cost products, and made of the Pacific Ocean a new way to wealth and prosperity. Hence, the 20th century was the time for the Atlantic Oceans, and the 21st century is and will continue to be Pacific Ocean's tie of greatness. Nowadays, 35% of the world's trade sails through the Pacific Ocean and unites China, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Singapore, and other important markets with the rest of the world. Out of all global trade, Europe represents 24% of sea cargo, while the U.S. East Coast and its huge magnet, New York, accounts for 26% of the world trade to take place in the American Northeast, where 65% of U.S. total trade takes place. Another 32% of world sea cargo happens in the east coast of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, mainly to connect the two oceans through the American Land Bridge, built in 1869 with its impressive ports in Los Angeles and Long Beach as the entry gate to merchandise from the Far East. To grasp the idea of what we're talking about, 19 million 20-feet-long containers, known as TIOs, carry cargo across the world yearly. That amount has increased by 5 to 8% in the past decade, and the growth rate will keep steady at least for the next 20 years. Within this interesting overview of global economy being transported by sea, Guatemala emerges as a key point that will be developed in the next few years. The Interoceanic Corridor project in Guatemala will establish a land bridge that will connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans in just a few hours, thanks to the construction of two modern ports and a 372-kilometer-long land canal with a highway for heavy loads, two railways, and 4 pipelines to transport oil, gasoline, and natural gas. Besides these intermodal and energy corridors, other steps are being taken that will add added value to the territory. We're talking about implementing high-capacity optic fiber to connect the oceanic cables that run along both coasts of Guatemala. Also, the production and distribution of electricity and waterways that may allow new agricultural developments in the area. These will be some of the logistic benefits that the Guatemalan Interoceanic Corridor will make available to the world. 2 deep-draught ports will receive and dispatch post-Panamax and super post-Panamax boats with a capacity of up to 22,000 TEUs. These ships would have never been able to cross the Panama Canal due to its size, not even after the canal was broadened. There are other ports along the Pacific Ocean that could very well hold these modern megaships. From California down to the south, several modern ports handle a great deal of cargo from the Far East, but are unable to send it across to the other ocean in the short term. By using the Interoceanic corridor of Guatemala, 4.5 hours will be enough to transport the cargo from one ocean to the other, as the average cruise speed will be 80 kilometers per hour by train or truck. The positive impacts of this huge project will be felt in the entire region, from the south of Mexico throughout Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador. As a business model, the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala is a unique project designed to go across the east part of the country through a 140-meter wide strip. The project of the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala worked for 13 years to identify and incorporate the 3,512 landowners from 46 municipalities, 7 departments, and 9 municipal commonwealths. This structure guarantees the project's success by creating a consolidated property out of this new short route for the trade from Asia to the main markets in the U.S. East Coast, also to the Atlantic coast of Latin America and to Europe. Due to its geostrategic position, Guatemala allows for waiting times to be shortened by up to 3 days for the cargo that waits to go across the Panama Canal. The crossing of cargo will be more expedited due to its capability to handle up to 6 megaships simultaneously and to work 24 hours a day throughout the year. Due to its design and facilities, San Jose and San Luis ports will handle ships of up to 22,000 TEUs. The corridor of Guatemala has competitiveness advantages over the American land bridge and the Panama Canal. In the analysis of the logistics chain between Shanghai and New York, the great advantage over the American land bridge can be stressed, particularly related to total transportation costs. In relation to the Panama Canal, the difference in the journey is more than 1,000 nautical miles. In the Pacific Ocean, which is the long route in the logistics chain, the sea movement can be conducted with greater size ships. This is advantageous in terms of movement cost per container, energy savings, and fewer CO2 emissions. The land portion of the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala will allow the classification of containers by final destination in the Gulf and in the U.S. East Coast, which will enable the development of shuttles to the various ports, thus saving time and money. On the other hand, the land transportation through Guatemala will improve considerably the profitability of moving empty containers coming from the U.S., as they could be loaded with agricultural and agro-industrial products produced in the country and transported to Asian markets. The ports in the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala consist in one or more valuable support to the global economy. 5 gantry cranes for each ship, working with the same system as in Singapore. Every minute, one container will in and out the ships to the land transports. It is estimated that the average time of cargo in port will not go beyond 2 days, counting from the time of docking to the departure through the land transport towards the following port. All these advantages put the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala into business to move cargo from one ocean to the other, eliminating the waiting time that hundreds of ships do every month in the Panamanian territorial waters. Nowadays, 37% of the world trade is moved in routes and ships that do not hold privileges in the Panama Canal, and which are bound to full fares and waiting times conditioned to the influx of ships. For these ships, the Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala becomes a great opportunity to improve costs, as it will take up part of that traffic and will open doors to the new generations of ships for the present and the future. There are great benefits on their way for the country and neighboring areas through the development of this new interoceans passage. The Interoceanic Corridor of Guatemala is to be built in an area where economic development has been limited and will generate tens of thousands new jobs in its construction phase alone. Besides these points of development, the project incorporates a series of social benefits that will contribute to improve the communities. schools, technical training centers, and hospitals. However, it would also be necessary to develop reforestation projects, small and medium-sized businesses to provide maintenance to the project, as well as a wide range of opportunities for those who seek a door to the future with the Interoceanic corridor of Guatemala. By understanding the importance of the new Interoceanic corridor of Guatemala, it is the future that is knocking on the country and the region's door. The door is open, so that today's navigation charts will take into account the unbeatable location of Guatemala and will take advantage of the opportunities that no one else can offer. It is time to join our efforts to materialize the geostrategic advantages Guatemala holds and to open a new option, as did Marco Polo and his Silk Route, Vasco da Gama and his Atlantic Route, Ferdinand de Lesseps and the Suez Canal, and Alexander von Humboldt with his first idea for the Panama Canal. Now, a group of visionary Guatemalans propose to the world a complementary alternative which is efficient and feasible. Through our Interoceanic corridor of Guatemala, the world has the support of our communities and our entrepreneurs, as well as the official approval of the government.